I did not vote in 2016, and this is why. I grew up in a world of revolving door politics where the heads of big corporations would get cushy positions in government, and the whole game was just, what's the right word? I'll say the game was rigged. Take that for what it is. Glenn Greenwald tweets this. If, during an election, tech giants take unprecedented steps to censor the internet to prevent the spread of incriminating reporting about a candidate, then of course that candidate, upon winning, should turn key government posts over to them. Anything else would be ungrateful. You see, Glenn Greenwald is talking about this tweet from Matt Stoller. The Biden transition is quietly putting Google and Facebook employees into its transition landing teams. That's right. Quite possibly one of the biggest stories of the past decade, maybe even to some people of our lives. The former vice president's son and brother were under federal criminal investigations, plural, because of illicit business dealings that in some cases were facilitated by the former vice president Joe Biden. Twitter, Facebook, Google acted to suppress this information in a variety of ways. And thus, many people did not know that the man they would later go on to vote for was crooked, corrupt, and according to a family confidant, Tony Bobulinski, compromised by China. The story was suppressed. Well, thank the lucky stars for Joe Biden, they did. And as Glenn Greenwald says, the only appropriate thing to do is to reward these people. They saved you. How such a good display, a beautiful display of loyalty from Joe Biden. Biden transition quietly brings on Facebook and Google employees. The tweet says from Matthew Stoller, when the Biden transition team released the names of hundreds of personnel on November 10th, there were 0 current Facebook or Google employees among them. That's changed. The transition website quietly added 4 Facebook and Google employees to its agency review teams on or close to Thanksgiving. The hawk-eyed Stephen Overly noticed. All 4 continue to work at their companies while on the transition administration. Zayed Zayed, a Facebook public policy official, joined the State Department and international development teams. Why? It was Andy Stone who said Facebook was suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. Remember that? A lot of people might not, because the story was suppressed, and you wouldn't have learned about the crooked Crony corruption of the Biden family. You know, Politico reported over a year ago about Biden Inc. We know that he's been corrupt, using the government to empower and enrich his family, then feign ignorance. But we all get it, okay? If your brother's getting $1 million lucrative contracts and you're flying your son to China for private equity deals, come on. We know exactly what's going on. Facebook suppressed the story to make sure this man got in, and now these people are getting jobs. Christopher Upperman, a Facebook manager, was added to the Small Business Administration team. Rachel Lieber, a Facebook director and associate general counsel, now sits on the intelligence community team. Dion Scott, a Google program manager and alum of Obama's Homeland Security Department, will serve on the DHS team. Oh, that's even better. He was part of the DHS under Obama, then went to go work for Google, and now is going back home. How beautiful. Silicon Valley critics have pressured the incoming administration not to hire people with ties to the tech industry to senior posts, particularly individuals associated with Facebook and Google, which are fending off massive antitrust lawsuits. There are a number of former Facebook leaders already in top positions on the transition. Let me tell you how things are going to play out. Serious action is being taken against these big tech companies, okay? Antitrust, accusations of censorship and bias, demands that Section 230 be removed outright or reformed. Reform makes the most sense. Repealing is bad. So what does Joe Biden do? Well, I wonder why it is these companies supported Joe Biden. I'd be willing to make a bet. I believe the most likely outcome is that there will be some kind of action to placate enough of the masses to simmer things down. You got too many people who are angry. 74 million people who voted for Trump, and even more than that who don't believe the election was free and fair. That's true. There's several polls showing that. It's kind of freaky if you think about it. 30% of Democrats believe that there was fraud. Now that's nuts. So what they have to do is they can't just come outright and be like, we're no longer going to break apart these companies and go after them. Joe Biden is just the president. He's not Congress. He's not Senate. Okay. So what he can do is potentially veto certain bills that might come through and provide favorable protections. Why is he bringing these people on? Well, the simple solution is that birds of a feather flock together. These people are probably just connected. But that's kind of the issue. People running, Joe Biden's campaign are connected to people at these big tech companies who are protecting him, helping him win. He's going to return the favor to the best of his abilities. It won't be overt and outright to an extreme degree, in my opinion, but they will basically put their thumb on the scale to protect these massive multinational corporations and these big tech companies that allow them to stay in power and would silence the will of the people. What I mean by that in terms of silencing the will of the people is suppressing information so that people cannot make the correct assessment. The way that journalism is supposed to work is that you give people the information they need so that they can decide. That's not what we have today. And worse still, we have these big tech corporations that just don't let it happen anyway. But there is still some good news, everybody. I know. There's still some good news. Perhaps you're concerned that with these people leaving Facebook, who will stop hate speech? If the Facebook employees go to Joe Biden's administration, well, now they're constrained by the First Amendment. And that means no one's going to stop the hate speech on Facebook. I'm being sarcastic. I hope you realize, well, more facetious than anything. After the U.S. election, key people are leaving Facebook and torching the company in departure notes. A departing Facebook employee said the social network's failure to act on hate speech makes it embarrassing to work here. And that's the point. Even with these people leaving, there's still going to be this, well, these people are, yeah, right. There's still going to be a serious pressure on Facebook to ban speech people don't like. There's clearly two different distinct cultures going on in the United States, and they're not going to get along all that well. But when these people leave Facebook, these people who want to ban hate speech, you wonder what the culture of Facebook is, and you wonder who's going to be in that Biden administration. I want to read this for you, but I want to show you an example of, I guess, the severity of where we're at. Why this is just a Facebook. I'm sorry, this is just YouTube, and there's nothing here. It's just YouTube, and it says this video has been removed for violating YouTube's community guidelines. This link was once an advertisement from Donald Trump complaining about voter fraud. YouTube has removed it. The other day, we learned that Scott Adams, a pundit commentator personality, had one of his videos removed as well. YouTube is suppressing information and opinions they don't like, and we all know it. And now some of these employees are going to be working with Joe Biden. These people believe they're smarter than you, they're better than you, and they have a right to control what you know. Why? We're all allowed to have our opinions and draw our own conclusions. Let me put it this way. YouTube's new rule is that if you meet two criteria, they take your video down. And that is, you have to claim the first criteria, claiming there's widespread voter fraud or error. If you say that, you're fine. But if you combine that with the second criteria, that because of it, Trump lost, that is a bannable offense. Or the video will be banned or removed. On January 20th, they'll start issuing guideline strikes for those that assert this. Donald Trump puts out a video complaining about fraud, and they remove it. The issue I have here is, if you look at all the evidence, particularly Matt Brainerd in the Voter Integrity Project, where he says we have evidence of potentially illegal ballots. He's very precise with his language. They're currently in litigation. So once this all wraps up, then we'll have probably a bigger conversation. He says that. Let me just add something. And this is a shout out to David Packman. I want to make sure he knows this. So he tweeted that voter fraud was essentially like religion, that people just believe it exists without evidence. First, the big main reason why hard evidence isn't just being dropped on Twitter, if for anybody who's interested in a good faith argument, is because judges really don't like it when you litigate the case in public before they get a chance to see it, because it creates undue pressure on the courts. And it's just, if you're going to bring a case, bring it to the judge, not to Twitter. In many of these circumstances, Matt Brainerd could not just publish people's names and addresses. He would be banned outright. That's doxing. The courts also don't want him publishing this stuff. but he has offered up the data to journalists. Now, I've had the privilege to actually look at some of the data he's presented, and I can say I independently corroborated some of the evidence he's had, and I believe that he is accurate in his assessment. Now, based on that information, I am not saying Trump should have won by no means. We've not had the day in court. There's not been anything proven definitively, but I think it exists and it warrants an investigation. Now, I can say all that, but based upon seeing the evidence and saying this, would it be unreasonable for someone to conclude in their opinion that they feel something else, that they believe Trump should have won? I believe that's perfectly rational and reasonable to conclude, though I personally wouldn't, because I want to see, look, I looked at some evidence, I corroborated it. It doesn't prove Trump lost the election because of fraud. It just doesn't. Trump comes out and says it. I do not agree with him. But I do agree that there needs to be more of an investigation, and we've not yet even had that in any of the courts, a review of evidence. That's no good. But I've looked at it. If someone concludes in their opinion they feel one way, that's just an opinion. It is. You can say your opinion is that, well, I think based on the amount of touchdowns by this quarterback that this football team's going to win. Well, you can't say that because it's not been proven. You got to wait till they do win. No, you can make predictions and you can give your opinion. There's many instances in sports, things not of consequence, where someone might be like, I don't know, man. They bring on this guy. He gets his big PR pitch, and then all of a sudden they're having him start. Yes, you're alluding to some kind of non-criminal conspiracy. Happens all the time. It's a normal and rational opinion to say, I've seen a couple of things. Now I believe thing is the result of this. YouTube has said you cannot have that opinion. They will remove it. How is that in any way protected by Section 230? There's nothing objectionable about having an opinion. People are allowed to be dumb. People have dumb opinions. I'm not saying everyone's dumb. I'm just saying, well, to varying degrees, people have stupid opinions. I certainly have stupid opinions because most of you have probably recognized something I've said where you're like, Tim's dumb for saying that. I certainly think my opinions aren't dumb. The point is, this is the censorship we are now seeing. And Matt Taibi makes an excellent point. The YouTube ban is un-American, wrong, and will backfire. Silicon Valley couldn't have designed a better way to further radicalize Trump voters. I completely agree. 100%. My friends, I spoke with Google on the phone. I say Google like Google's a person. I spoke with an employee at Google about this to get a better understanding of what the rules are and what you can or can't say. I believe you are allowed to say absurdities like due to aliens, firing a laser at voting machines, Trump had the election was changed or something like that. You can say like ridiculous nonsense. I was told you can say Trump actually won. You can say that the election was stolen from Trump. You just can't combine those two things. In this conversation I had with them, I asked them, look, the people that I talk to at Google are not the bosses. They don't make these decisions. So it really is just the messenger coming, and I'm not going to, well, I won't use any analogies because I won't be like 300 where the guy comes in and he goes, this is Sparta, and he kicked, No, I get it. The person I'm talking to can't do anything other than tell me what they've been told. But I said to them, are you intentionally trying to make everyone lose their minds? For 4 years, longer, we've had insane comments and videos on social media about Russian interference. To this day, videos that claim Donald Trump did not legitimately win the election, and due to Russian manipulation, interference, and hacking, Hillary Clinton lost. That was all acceptable? Always? Do you think people are blind? Stupid. So now they roll out this new rule. And I said, all you're doing is signaling to conservatives, you will not respect them and you will never allow them a fair chance at understanding or communicating or sharing their ideas. So yes, I said, I believe you have just created the fastest path towards radicalization because BitChute, Minds, and Parler still exist. Platforms with which many people are still communicating and sharing videos. Now they're telling each other how insane things have gotten and dangerous they've gotten. How these people at Google, guess what? After they do this, Joe Biden gives some of them a job. I'm not saying this guy from Google worked on any of these projects, but it is a massive conflict of interest to be directly benefited by the manipulation of search, by the manipulation of autofill results or suppressing YouTube content, and then say you're going to hire some guy. Because we don't know the connections. I know Google's a big company with a lot of employees. Conflict of interest still. Matt Taibi says, start with the headline. Supporting the 2020 U.S. election. YouTube in its company blog can't even say banning election conspiracy theories. They have to employ the Orwellian language of politicians. Healthy forest, clear skies supported elections. Because Google and YouTube are now political actors who can't speak plainly any more than a drunk can walk in a straight line. This announcement came down at roughly the same time Hunter Biden was announcing that his tax affairs were under investigation by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware. Part of that investigation concerned whether or not he had violated tax and money laundering laws, as CNN put it, foreign countries, principally China. That news was denounced as Russian disinformation by virtually everyone in reputable media, who often dismissed the story with an aristocratic snort a la Christian Amanpour, one of the worst of the worst and snooty fake news journalists. I'm not going to read through everything because you get the point, what that Matt Taibbi is trying to make. They suppressed information that would have hurt Joe Biden. Facebook directly stated, we were limiting the reach of this story. They said it outright. They were removing content and leaks. There's still a name you can't say on YouTube and Facebook. And Joe Biden rewards employees at these companies with jobs. It's not the first time he's done it. I believe there's also like Twitter employee and another Facebook employee who have made it. Ultimately, where this leads us. Right-wing individuals, conservative individuals, and anybody not, I don't know what you'd call it. Well, I don't know what the factions are. Call it right, call it left, whatever. They're aware that we are being lied to and manipulated, and effectively they are spitting on us in our faces and laughing because no one's going to do anything, and no one ever has. What can be done? Republicans like to play politics, go through the courts, and most Republican politicians literally do nothing. It's the best, isn't it? Regular people. You know, I think it's funny. Andrew Yang has that book called The War on Normal People. And I'm like, I wonder what he thinks the war on normal people is. Because I think it's this. I think it's regular people being restricted from communicating. I think it's anti-scientific lockdowns that destroy the livelihoods of working class individuals. And when these people try to stand up and speak out, they're smacked in the face, spat on, and laughed at. They think that electing a Republican is going to help them. Silly, naive fools. Sorry, I hate to say it. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody. But if you think electing a Republican is going to help you out as the Democrats play crony politics and are cheating, you're sorely mistaken. Okay? These Republicans, almost all of them, are part of the exact same political establishment. It's a fact. It's always been. And now you had 126 Republican House members? I will say outright, you know, okay, good on them, I guess, for signing on to support Donald Trump in this Texas suit, which ultimately didn't make it. Maybe something will change. I don't know. But just that's 64% of the Republican House. What about the rest of them? You see, even the ones who signed on, in my opinion, only did it because they saw what happened to Perdue and Loeffler. When these Republicans were not coming out, going to war for Trump, many people said, I'm not going to vote for him. Trump supporters are not Republicans. The Republicans had their day and they've lost it. I think at this point, many people realize they're worthless. Except for, I think, like Rand Paul, for the most part. Rand's cool, dude. I've always been a big fan of Rand and Ron Paul, and not even completely in agreement with their policy positions, but more of the general ideology of freedom, liberty, and individualism I definitely respect. So, Ron, you get a free pass. You're a good dude. And there's a handful of others. Tulsi Gabbard continually proves that she is of principle, and she's rad. She's just awesome. She's come out with a couple bills recently that I believe shows that she is a good person with integrity, standing for what she believes in the face of this ridiculous political tribalism. Certainly neither are perfect. And, not like I'm playing favorites, but, Rand Paul is legit. You know what I mean? Tulsi Gabbard's cool. She's also legit. But, Rand Paul's, I'll leave it there. All right. I clearly think Rand Paul is one of the best politicians we have. Not that I completely agree with him, but props to Tulsi as well. She's my second favorite without trying to be disrespectful. Anyway, long story short, this is what we had before. This is what I've seen throughout my life. You get some guy works at this big conglomerate, nasty company, and then he retires and then he gets appointed to a government position. I mean, there's an argument there. That person probably has experience in these companies, but he's going to hook up his crony buddies. Look at Dick Cheney. Look at Halliburton. Look at the war in Iraq. And then what happens? Barack Obama gets elected. Joe Biden's overseeing Iraq. He puts his brother in charge. Well, okay, his brother gets a bunch of lucrative contracts. Makes a lot of money. That's the name of the game. They are extracting value to enrich and empower themselves so they will always be on top. And this is just another example. Joe Biden is obligated. He's obligated to support those who helped him win in some way or another. And at the very least, these individuals taking these jobs, the Biden transition team, are going to be very well connected to these big tech companies. And that's the point. It's not just about rewarding them. It's about Joe Biden saying, who do I call? Who do you call? When you got your Twitter post censored, when you got your Facebook post censored, when YouTube banned your video, who did you call? No one. That's right. You got no one to call. Joe Biden brings these people on because they worked in these offices, and now he's got someone to call. Now, when they see a video from Donald Trump and Trump says there's fraud, Joe Biden looks over to this guy and says, give a call to make a call to somebody over at Google. Will you do it? And like, oh, yeah, I know tons of people at Google. Gives a call to one of his buddies. Hey, yeah, we had this video from Trump. Can you do something about it? And there you go. Plain and simple. That's how it is done. That's what it's about. Strategic positioning. They don't care about you. It's a big club and you ain't in it. And it's the same club they used to beat you over the head with. That's what George Carlin said. I think it was a great bit. He said something else that I can't repeat in that joke, but it's a family-friendly show for the most part. Look, I expected things like this. I expect more like this. I'd be surprised if you thought anything else was going to happen. And I'll just wrap it up with, if you think the Republican Party is going to do right by you and voting for them is your best bet, I think that's nuts. I do think it's fair to point out, having the Republicans control the Senate will slow things down. But I do think it's fair to say that if Perdue and Loeffler, only one of them needs to win. But I mean, look, the runoffs are happening basically at the same time. So I don't know who's going to win. I do think it's interesting. People are saying that only people who voted in the first election who are eligible to vote can vote now. So no new registrations is not going to matter. But they're going to try and rile up people who are already registered. It's going to be both or none. I don't think it matters if the Republicans win the Senate. I think it might slow things down, but the Republicans aren't going to do anything. It's like I was saying earlier on. How come we don't get, I think maybe I said this in the previous segment, but the point was, how come we don't get Republicans advocating for universal gun ownership? We get the left advocating for universal health care. Where are the Republicans saying there should be a law passed that says it is mandatory to own a gun? They say it's mandatory to buy insurance. That wasn't, check this out. When the left passed the law saying, when the Democrats did, you must buy insurance or get a fine. Where are the Republicans to pass the law saying you must buy a gun or pay a fine? Why not? Why? Because the Republicans don't do anything. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Yes, I know. You may be saying, but I'm on YouTube Timcast. No, you're not. It might say Timcast down below because YouTube did that for some reason. But if you go to youtube.com/Timcast, it is in fact a different channel. Check it out, subscribe, type it in the Edge Spark Press Enter, and I'll have another video up at 4 p.m. today. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.